Hey y'all, this is Anissa. I know that you were expecting the Year End Yak Part 2. That is still coming, don't worry, but we had some technical hiccups that caused some pretty significant delays. So in the meantime, we bring you this spoiled yak on the interest of love. So enjoy that, and we'll see you with the Year End Yak Part 2 very soon. You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anissa, and Boroma. It's been a while. Took me a second to remember what I had to say. Hey y'all, I'm Anissa.
I'm Parma, and we have replaced Saya permanently with Fabi.
Oh, look, it's me again. I haven't been here in a while.
So if we have managed to release these episodes in order, then you would have listened to me and Fabi talk about another drama in the previous episode, and now we are back. And today, Anita and I decided we need to grab Fabi and talk about interest of love.
Yay!
Anissa,
I would have been very upset if I didn't get invited for this.
No one else would have been the correct guest.
Right? Because Anissa started watching because Fabi decided that she needs to talk about like the first 4 episodes of Interest of Love. And I was hyperventilating because I thought I was the only one watching this drama before Fabi started talking about it online.
I wasn't speaking to anyone about it. And then you were like, there's this drama I really like at the moment. And I was like, is it this one? And I was like, a friend, finally.
I watched the trailer for it on Netflix and I was like, this looks weird and not like something I would watch. And then I saw that you had posted about it and I read like one paragraph. I was like, okay, let's watch this.
It's not like anything I normally watch either though, right? Like it's a workplace romance drama, or at least that's what it looks like on the surface, which is like my least favorite genre. I was like, I'm not interested in this. And then I could see people tweeting about it and talking about how like complex the characters were, and I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. And then it just took over my life for like 8 weeks.
And for me, I have been so badly burned by dramas last year that now whenever because I spent majority of 2022 getting very excited about the first half of a drama, talking about it incessantly, and then being basically pushed off a cliff in the second half. So I was determined not to talk about Interest of Love because I was madly in love with the first 4 episodes. I was not expecting the twists.
No.
I thought we were going straight forward into a sort of like a sweet, I don't know, a sort of slice of life office drama, maybe, slightly melancholy in bits, but like nothing too out of the ordinary. And then, man, it was just like by end of first episode, I'm like, I don't know where they're going with this, but it's so good.
You know that moment at the end of episode 1 where she turns around with like that cold ice queen look on her face, and you're just like, who is this person?
And he's just like, that's when I realized that An Seong is a bitch. And it's like, whoa, what?
What? And I was like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. Okay.
It was such a good first episode because it set up this like beautiful like Disney-esque fairy tale romance story where like she's just like the perfect girl and he's like madly in love with her, and then it all just falls apart at the last second and you spend the entire drama trying to bring it back to where it was. And it's just it felt like such a subversion of everything that we're used to. I was like, why are they getting together so soon? I was like full of dread the whole episode, and then the dread paid off.
Yeah, you're like, because this can't end well because it's only episode 1 and then it just really doesn't end well.
Yeah. They were making you feel anxiety. Did you guys notice the soundtrack throughout the first episode? Like everything superficially seemed like, oh, so cutesy. They're stealing glances at each other. They are flirting a little bit. It's escalating to, them kind
it was
of
like nauseously saccharine.
Together.
It was like so sweet. I was like, but this doesn't feel right.
But the underscore of the entire thing was discordant because it was like tense underscore. You're like, oh my God, somebody's going to jump out and stab everybody any moment now.
And there were a lot of like long pauses and long silences, which like after what happens, then you're like, oh, okay, I see why we lingered on certain shots and why like there were certain pauses and yeah, like the tension was a little like it was romantic tension, but then it was like a little off, in some moments. Like there's that moment that like always I don't know why, but really sticks in my mind where they have that first, sort of date, I guess, that neither of them is willing to label as a date. And then at the end he's like, "Can I see you again?" or whatever. And she's like, "Well, I don't like ambiguous relationships." And he's like, "Okay." And he doesn't like clarify exactly. And so like it's cute, but it also you're just like you were like looking for a little bit more, and then like they come back to that moment, later again. But it was just interesting.
That moment was so good.
It leaves you a little imbalanced. Yeah.
Because in the first episode, Soo-young is like weirdly opaque. Like you don't start to get into her brain until like the later episodes. So she's just kind of there, being pretty, being sort of like offhandedly charmed by him, but like you can't really tell whether she likes him the same way that he likes her. And when she says like, "I don't really like vague relationships," you can't know for certain that she means I want to date you. Like it's completely unclear. Yes. And it's only like later on when we start to like deconstruct that moment and all the other moments, like, after we find out why she's so mad, that we can start to get into her head and understand how it works.
I kind of assumed when she said that that I don't like fake relationships, that Soo-young was operating from like a place of self-defense from the very beginning. And that was established pretty quickly, because one thing the drama did, like pretty early on, is establish the imbalance of their workplace relationship, about how she was the more experienced one, but he was the more privileged one. They did that really quickly, which is why, while that track is sort of like, being laid out, their romance kind of taking off in the first episode seemed so like out of place. Like things are not aligning properly. Like how can this sort of disbalance exist, and yet they have a romance where she can see him as like, when he does nice things for her, it's sweet, but also she has been his sambe in the field. Like he has been a rookie that she has literally trained. So him doing sweet things for her is not necessarily a romantic gesture. Like you would think that would be like a respect due to a sambe, but because of her position in the branch, that's not so. I mean, somebody who's already sort of like bypassed her, he would just not bother with her. The fact that he still bothers is partly because he's a kind of a nice guy. He's not rude in general, but also, like it's emphasized pretty early on, it's because he likes her. It's possible that he would have been less attentive towards her maybe if he didn't like her, but because of his feelings, he is still respectful and extra attentive towards her.
There's even that moment where he calls her, I think, Sambe Nim, and it's like one of those flashbacks to the past where she's like training him. And she's like, "Oh, you don't have to call me that," because he and she both know that that's not how their status works.
Yeah,
like
she
even
outranks
if technically
him.
she's the one.
He outranks her even.
Yeah, like so even though she's technically his Sambe, like she's like, "Come on, like we both know that that's not like a status that anyone is going to expect you to give me." And he I don't think in that right at the beginning, it's really that he has a romantic interest in her. There is an aspect of him just being like a respectful and nice person. But yeah, absolutely. It is, after a few years at this point, when he has a much better and more stable position at the bank, it is because of that.
Yeah. And I think it was also kind of shown that initially when she was teaching him, she's a very beautiful woman, and even in like the drama, that's acknowledged that she's very attractive. So when she first joined the branch, she was like the goddess of the Byongpo branch. But that kind of shine wore off, because she's basically doing menial work as well as her own work because of her status in the branch. And so when he joins, it's very clear that she is a beautiful woman, but it's not something he acts on. Years pass them working in the same branch. He never acts on it. It's like very clear. Like you can see him stealing glances at her practically from the very first scene in the bank. but you can also see that he's like in a status, like he's not acting on it, and she clearly knows that he's been stealing glances at her. It's just this thing about
Well, it's
Sansu's character being like slow as molasses.
well, his name literally means constant.
Yeah.
Like in a math sense, right? Like Sangsu is a constant. Byung-soo is variable, and like that's the whole thing, is like he's a constant, and then she comes into his life and is variable. But like
Yeah.
that's like the fundamental problem that these two have, is both of them are so used to like protecting themselves because of, I think, a combination of their personalities and their life experience, that both of them have their walls up so high that it like took them so long to take that step towards each other. And in the meantime, like all this other stuff happened because their second leads were like much more proactive, and so like things actually progressed. Whereas with these two, they're just like in their shells, refusing to emerge for such a long time, and then when they finally emerged, everybody else is like, well, you know, it's kind of too late for this now. What are you doing?
Yeah, the problem as well is that they all grow over the course of the drama. They all mature, but they don't mature at the same pace. Like their growth isn't linear. Some of them take steps forward, some of them take steps back. And Sang-soo and Soo-young in particular are just never at the same point when they need to be. Like Sang-soo is ready to commit to Soo-young right at the end, but you know, was hesitant about her in the beginning, and Soo-young had the opposite experience, where at the beginning she was so ready to commit to him, but then after everything that happened, just had to bail out. And that's the real like tragedy of the whole thing, I think.
Was she ready though? I don't think that she was, because if she had been, she wouldn't have had such an extreme reaction to his
Hesitation.
You know, like that hesitation is something that I want to come back to when we talk about the ending. But can we talk about like this love square first before we get to the ending? Because I know we'll have a lot of thoughts about the ending, but like let's talk about these four people.
Okay.
I really liked, like, for once, they actually let the relationships, like the relationships with the second lead, actually become relationships. Which I was so grateful for, because usually it's always like, hey, this is a promising, pairing, like somebody who's like maybe more your wavelength, and, you know, society wants you to be with them, and they are an option, but then the, you know, main leads never really go for the option. So we never really find out what would happen if they did. So that was, I appreciated the drama for going there.
Yeah, I think I said a similar thing. I think I said that this is like the only true love square I've ever seen, I think, because normally you're introduced to a love triangle in a drama, and it's like, oh, look, both of these men love this woman, usually, normally like two men, one woman. And, you know, she never entertains the second lead as an option. So it's like, he loves her, sure, but is it a love triangle if he doesn't pose any kind of threat to her feelings for the hero? And then here you actually have it so that everything is just a little bit jumbled for like a good 5 episodes or so, where it's just like, oh, everyone's really really don't know how this is going to go at the moment. It could be anyone for anyone.
Yeah. The other drama that this was reminding me of, I don't know if you all have seen Que Sera Sera, from, I think it's from 2008.
Oh, I
with
have.
Eric Moon and Jung Yumi.
Yeah.
And I mean, that drama was, I mean, I watched it pretty early on in my K-drama fandom. Maybe it was like 2010 or 2011. And I was like, oh, and okay, like spoilers if you haven't seen it. But she actually marries the second lead. I was like, y'all are going hard. Like, what is going on here? And it also, it has an ending that you can interpret in multiple ways. So I chose to interpret it the way that I wanted. But like Interest of Love very much reminds me of that, because you see these characters who are, you know, the product of their choices, and they make a lot of bad choices because of who they are and kind of where they are in life. And they genuinely have a connection, but things go wrong because of, you know, like they have to face the consequences of those choices, and it doesn't really pull any punches. And also the writing and the acting is just so good. And so here as well, just the writing and the acting, like truly these two leads, and also like the actress who plays Mi Kyung.
Gum Sedok was amazing.
Gum Sedok was incredible.
I remember it was the end of episode 11 in particular where I realised that she was just like the standout star. It was when she and Sangsu were finally breaking up, where she just like, jumped out of the car and was like, I told you I wanted to do this later. And she's just like in tears, and it's just like, oh my God, this performance is so raw. It's just something completely else.
Yeah. It's interesting that so Jo Young-min, who directed Interest of Love, had also directed Do You Like Brahms, which was nearly my favorite drama of the year when it came out. And that was also, it was a story about like people loving each other, but that not being enough in a relationship. Like there are insecurities, there are things that you haven't figured out, there are issues with status, obligations, and it's a very similar theme now that I think about it, but like this is way, way, way more explored. Whereas Brahms was less. But still, I mean, I just, it's rare enough that you get stories where you're talking about love just not being enough. And even if you're trying really hard, unless you're in the right headspace and you have figured out what are the things that are driving you. Like all of these characters, when they act not badly, but like when they make bad choices, it's usually because of their history, external pressures on them, and what people might think about them. And all of these things kind of meddling with their head when they're making the decision, and then they make terrible choices.
Or like a lack of self-knowledge, or like a self-knowledge that hasn't caught up to like the present moment fast enough. So when they get that self-knowledge, then they're like, oh shit, like I made the wrong decision, but it's too late now. One thing that I wanted to bring up about so Yoo Yeon-suk is really good in this. I did not think that he was this good of an actor. But he, without speaking, he is able to express so much just by like micro expressions. So kudos to him. But what I think was the most interesting contrast between characters was really between the two heroines. I don't know. I feel like Seok is like an equal heroine in this because she plays such an important role, and to me she's actually like a more interesting and satisfying character overall. Like her development for me was the most satisfying out of all the four main leads. And like you see so clearly, right? Like in the beginning they set up this friendship, but it's never really an equal friendship because clearly like they like each other and they get along, they have that common interest in art, but they can never have an equal relationship because of, it's not just that they are not of the same status, but it's also like Mi-kyung's
socialization,
casualness. Yeah, like she is just so casual about money and spending money and the way she uses money to show affection that she's learned from her dad, and that like the way that she uses money to bring people close to her, and the way that like it literally, you can just see how it turns So Young's stomach in a lot of moments, even though she's like, okay, I understand this is who you are, but like, how can you be so flippant about this thing that is like literally, can change my life?
I think the culmination of that was in episode 10, when Seong basically took all of the clothes that Mi-kyung had just given to her as an excuse to go and see her, because of Sang-soo, and just donated them all and and got money in exchange for them, which she then gave to Jung-hyun. And she was like, I really hate how some people find this easy and we find it difficult. This is me like venting my anger about that. And that felt like the culmination of their...
scene.
Oh, it was. That felt like the culmination of all of their sort of struggles, because it was very subtle before that. I think the issues between Mi-kyung and Soo-young, it was mostly like conveyed through their art, actually. Like, the fact that Soo-young was really drawn to this painting that she found in a window, and then Mi-kyung just bought it and just hung it on her bathroom wall, and it was just like, oh yeah, I bought it. Do you like it?
Yeah.
And not recognizing
in
that
the bathroom of all places, not even like in her, in the foyer or like somewhere in the bathroom. Like literally, she's gonna look at it when she poops. Like that's how. And it's like such an expensive piece of art that was like on the, something that Soo-young could see on her way to work, and she just like took it for herself. Yeah. I think what I really loved about this show was there are a lot of shows that explore, you know, social class and wealth inequality and how it can be a barrier to like happiness in a relationship between two people. But most of the time, it uses really drastic comparisons, you know? So you have the sort of Cinderella story type of where you have like the chaebol heir and the really poor Candy, and, you know, everything is really dramatic and it's all about like throwing glasses of water in people's faces and envelopes of money. And like, it's such a huge contrast between their classes, but this one is so subtle because you're seeing it in like multiple levels. All four of these leads have like are sort of in a different situation when it comes to how well off they are or how, you know, poor they are, and they show it in the details, you know, like really like small details.
There's one scene, for instance, where it just shows how all four of them make coffee, and it starts with like Jonghyun just, I think, using like packet coffee and stuff, and then sort of working its way up to the fact that Mi-kyung has her own like barista machine at home and things like that. And it is in all of the little details of just how they go about their everyday life where they portray these differences rather than like big gestures or anything.
Yeah. And you know, there's this one moment that really sticks out for me when like you got to the point where like everyone is miserable and everyone is upset and it's like nighttime and they can't sleep. But Soo-young just lies in her bed, unable to sleep. Mi-kyung has her, you know, prescription sleeping medicine that she takes and she goes to sleep. And you're like, even in this moment where like they're both so disturbed over you know, what they're dealing with in terms of like the man that they both love. It's like so much easier for Mi-kyung to just like take a sleeping pill and then like not show up at work the next day and really not face any consequences.
Yeah.
And then, you know, here's Soo-young not sleeping and then having to get up and go to work on no sleep. I mean, it's a small detail, but it's just so good. And it like doesn't say it, like it doesn't push things in your face. Everything is so subtle. There's so much that is like between the lines and isn't said explicitly.
Like
a
lot of how Soo-young is treated at work, for instance, is really like subtly sinister. Sinister maybe is a bit of an exaggeration, but like the fact that, you know, she is expected to go out to all of these like drinking parties so that she can like liaise with clients and stuff. Because she is a woman, like it's never explicitly stated, right? But, you know, she's expected to pour drinks for these older men and not complain. And then when she does complain, if the men in the office are like, well, I go to those. What's the problem? You know, I'm happy to do that. It's like, it's not the same for you, man. You know, you're not a woman. You're not sort of constrained to how women are expected to act in these situations. And you're also not,
but also,
you know, at this point in the food chain.
She's not, it's not just that she's a woman, but she's a woman in the most vulnerable position in the office. And there were other women in the office who were not being asked to do the same service as her because she was the one who could easily lose her job, whereas the others wouldn't. They aren't like, you know, contract workers who would just like, who can easily be fired, is what I'm trying to say. And the conversation that happens when she does say she wouldn't do it, or rather the conversation that happens right before she says that she wouldn't do it, because I think she gets called to go on one of those, and then a rumor starts about like the boss and her, are they having some kind of a thing? Because
started by the other women in the office, which is the part that hurts the most.
Absolutely. And then you have these people talking about, like, some of them being like, you know, she can't say no. And the others being like, why? Of course she can say no. All of us, you know, anybody can say no. She's only going because she wants to. And the thing is, at the end of the day, you have all of these people flipping. Like, some of these characters who see some really nasty things about her at a later point are perfectly nice about her, like genuinely perfectly nice to her and like say nice things about her. It's like the dichotomy of like evil things coming out of perfectly normal people's mouth is kind of emphasized over and over like that.
Yeah, well, that makes me think of that scene close to the end where Mi-kyung tells Soo-young when they meet, you know, again, that, you know, like there were a lot of rumors about me, but I've gotten used to it. She said, you know, like I realized that to those people, talking about these rumors is just like talking about the weather to them. Like it means nothing.
It's meaningless. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's true. Like people will say the most horrifying, disgusting things as gossip, and it doesn't even register with them because it's just like their morning chat over coffee as they're like starting their day.
Which sucks as well, because those kinds of rumors are what made Soo-young's life hell for years. And it's ultimately what sort of made her decide that it wasn't worth staying at the bank anymore, because she'd, endured so much of that, just so much like casual mistreatment, that it had all sort of like piled up. And it got to the point where she was finally getting what she wanted, which was, like a sort of a boost in her status and, a new job in a new location. And it just wasn't worth it anymore, like because she'd recognized that wasn't what was going to bring her happiness at all in the first place.
Plus, that new job in that new location was going to be working with that man who took the video of like her most humiliating moment at work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Can we talk about that whole thing with the way she like throws a nuclear bomb into her own life and everyone that she cares about? Can we talk about that? Because I have things to say, but I want to hear y'all's thoughts first.
Well, I knew it was coming. I'd heard from a few people on Twitter who'd like heard from people who'd read the novel, because obviously it's not like translated into English. And so I found out basically that something was going to happen where Soo-young was basically going to just destroy everything. And I was like, okay. And then it did. And I was surprised by how much I didn't hate it, I guess, because I feel like what I love about the drama is that even though you see characters doing horrible, stupid things, the drama itself doesn't judge them for it. It's very much trying to make you understand how on earth they could ever come to the conclusion that that's the right thing to do, and then like where it takes them afterwards. So yeah, it was horrible to watch, obviously, but like it was interesting to me to figure out why Soo-young would want to do that. I think the main reason probably is that she just didn't have it in her to amicably end her relationship with Jong-yeon. Like she couldn't see a way to just sit down with him and have a nice conversation. So she was like, maybe I'll just pretend to cheat. And then he'll have to hate me and then he'll leave on his own.
Yeah. And I think she was basically so tired of people making judgments about her, because there were rumors of her sleeping with men just because she's never gone out with anybody. The consensus amongst the assholes in the back room was that, it's because she goes out with so many men. That's why she doesn't go out with any men. Just super logic. Like she's just so tired.
It's literally just sour grapes because they think she's hot and they're upset that she won't give them the time of day, right? Like it's just the most low-level male garbage.
Pretty much. And on top of that, like of course she has complicated feelings about this man, and she's trying to navigate her relationship, and there are so many things going on, but she can also see how she's constantly being judged. Like just judged by the man she loves, judged by this woman who wants to be her friend and then sees her as a threat, judged by the guy she's in a relationship with, and like it's like this, and everything is going downhill. But the point is, like, she never gets to tell her own story in a way, so she takes the path of high drama. Honestly, I respect that. I mean, I found it.
Yeah, I like hated it, and I completely understood her at the same time, just because of how well the drama set up her character and her like insecurities and her trauma and her like fears. For me, and it was miserable. It was miserable to see her do it. It was miserable to see the fallout. Like it was so the drama. This is one of the only shows I've ever watched where I'm like miserable, but I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. But for me, what I was upset about was she does that and then she like leaves.
Yeah.
And then he goes and finds her and they have this whole reconciliation. And then she disappears again. And I was like, really? Twice? I cannot. Like I at that point I was just like, this is too much. Like I didn't understand that second disappearance.
Her leaving the first time is actually the one that got to me, because I was like, girl, that's Jong-hyun behavior. Like when he was being really evasive and didn't want to like confront the fact that they were both miserable and that he hated that he was failing the exam all the time, he would just take off for days and not tell her where he was going. I was like, no, this is worse. The second one, I feel like I can understand.
It was worse. Sorry, go ahead.
The second one, I feel like I could understand because the drama sort of gave me the sort of the feeling that it was very final, like that they both knew it was final in a way, and that's why he never really properly tried to find her again afterwards. Like she said in the very last episode that the reason that she never called him was because it felt like everything had been given and everything had been received. So it was just like a natural conclusion to their relationship at that point in time. Obviously, it's still shitty, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess with the first time that she disappeared, I could understand that after what had happened and everything that she was dealing with like the workplace people, like I could see her just wanting to exit completely from any kind of relationship with all of those people, including him, and just like all of the misery that had kind of ensued with Jung-hyun coming to the workplace, basically like spilling this thing that I think she thought would just that only he would know naively, and everyone found out. And so like I can understand her just being like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave and disappear, and like no one's gonna know where I am. And I could totally understand her not wanting to go to that new job, even though like it sucked so much because she worked so hard and she finally got the thing that she was trying to get. But the second time I was like, like this guy is not gonna, I don't know. I guess on paper I can understand her motivations, but like narratively it felt like we were doing the same thing again, and I feel like it stretched the story out. So I wasn't really. I was like, this is getting.
I don't
too
disagree.
much now.
I think the second time was that the story just committing to Moon Ga-young's character being Soo-young just being opaque. Like, I don't think she ever stopped being opaque, even though around
agree.
episode 3-4 we started getting more glimpses into her mind, but she was never completely. She was like, you have Sang-soo being completely transparent at all times. Like, you always know what this man is feeling.
Yep.
Even Mi-kyung, you knew what Mi-kyung was feeling. You knew what Jung-hyun was feeling. But at every point, wherever Soo-young was in the picture, like she can go either ways. In this particular moment, she can respond positively, or she can just like walk away with like the blankest face. You just did not know how this woman was going to react, which tells you that the drama just didn't want us to know her the way we knew the other characters. So this was just like the drama committing to, hey, she has mystique. That's why.
I also like her refusal to talk at a certain point. Like for a long time, her refusal to talk was, creating tension, and it was like an interesting, like you could understand why she was so reticent, and like it was a part of her character that I like really sympathized with. And then at a certain point, maybe around like episode 14, I was just like, girl, just open your mouth. Like what is gonna happen if you say one sentence? I just could not and I understand that like as someone who talks a lot, maybe that's just me, but I just couldn't like you said, Warma, like she was just so opaque. And there's this conversation that she has with I can't remember her name, but like the Team Jang-nim, like the woman the older woman who's like really nice to her, the only one who's like truly lovely to her.
Yeah.
Yes. The one true friend that she had at that bank. And she's like, you're doing what you love. You have you're happy now. Like, why don't you just let yourself do what you want? She's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, go after this man. Like, you don't have to like be with a man that you don't love, but like, why don't you just do what makes you happy? And like, I don't know if even by the end she's like ever doing that. Like that like expression that she has on her face where she has like that slight smile. And it's like so clearly a mask. She never completely loses it. And like, for me, like even until the end, I was kind of hoping for them to get back together despite everything, just because like you could still feel that they had feelings for each other. And it took me like, I just finished watching this last night, and it took me some time to like process, and then maybe I'm still processing. And I was thinking like, okay, I'm actually okay with them not ending up together because she is not at the point where she can be with him or to be with anyone really, like fully. And maybe that's kind of, I was trying to ask myself, like, what is this drama trying to say? Because in the beginning, I felt like this drama was asking the question of, should you like be practical or should you go by your feelings? You know, when you're choosing a romantic partner. But I don't know if that's really the question that we're left with at the end. So I want to ask y'all, like, what do you think the drama was? Oh, I actually like wrote down Sang-soo's little speech at the end. So let me just read it.
Yeah.
We were once a part of each other's lives. We fell for each other. Our hearts fluttered for each other. We were foolish. We regretted. All those moments ultimately turned into yearning. During those times, did we love each other or did we understand each other? And that's my own translation because I hate the Netflix translation.
Yeah, the Netflix translation makes no sense.
Completely. Yeah, they forced it because they changed the title and they
to
wanted
the interest
to
of
tie it
love.
in.
Yeah, we'll be blinded by the interest. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of the last real thing that we're left with, right? Other than him being like, I didn't forget anything, meaning like that he doesn't regret, I guess that he doesn't regret being together. But like, what do you think the drama is trying to say?
I think one of the themes is definitely what he said, like because it was unclear in the very beginning. Like you could see that part of the thing was like, can you possibly truly be with someone who's not of your own class, doesn't share your economic background, your history? Just the way you approach your life is very different when your economic backgrounds are drastically different. Can love actually sustain you? So those were the questions they were primarily asking in the first half, but by the second half, I kind of felt like it was more about if you keep giving into society or like the social pressures that keep molding your decisions, they have like this almost corrosive effect. Like you're not really left with much of yourself to give to another person, like to fall in love. Like of these characters, I suppose Sang-soo, thanks to his really, really lovely mom, is probably one of the only people who more or less was in a healthier mind space and continued to get it to a better space, like mentally, like with his understanding of himself. By the end of the drama, he's still in a space where he can fall in love, like he can give of himself. I felt like Soo-young didn't have enough to give of herself. Like she had spent so many years in a defensive ball, and also kind of like believing, sort of like experiencing society in the worst way, trying to survive, and also having that horrible relationship with her family. All of that, I don't think by the time she got out of this stuff and just basically ran away and started her own thing, I don't think she had enough of her left to like fall in love. So the question had changed by the end of the drama. And the same thing goes for Mi Kyung. I don't think, like she started with like the whole romance of like the schoolgirl in her head, but by the end of the drama, she's like, it's just an ex. I don't need to see him.
But you know, with her, I feel like Mi Kyung actually had some really amazing character development. Like she came to a lot of realizations about who she is in a relationship, who she wants to be in a relationship, her relationship with her parents. Like that moment where she has that sort of final breakup with Sang-soo. Yeah. That conversation in the car where she flips the coin, and then the conversation before that when he brings her home from the hospital and he apologizes to her. Honestly, that was the best speech in the whole drama, where he basically tells her like, I disrespected you, I'm really sorry, and he like owns up to all the crappy stuff that he did in their relationship, like which he's been kind of denying and pretending like he's a nice guy, and he like really, really sincerely apologizes. And I was like, yes, now you are the hero that you've been pretending to be.
I
this
agree.
whole
Mi
time.
Kyung actually has a better like heroine's journey, so to speak, in a romance drama than Soo-young did.
Yeah, and then her conversation with her dad. Sorry, I just wanted to like remember this scene.
I agree.
I love
that was
scene.
so good.
Where she's like, she's like, thank you. I realized I never thanked you, and I realized, and like her basically acknowledging like this has been his way of showing her love when she thought that he didn't love her. And then you could see him like get a little choked up.
Oh,
I'm
I
getting choked up.
know.
It was so
That was a
good.
really standout moment
Meanwhile,
for me as well. I thought that was like a really good entry to sort of the class narrative now that it has sort of shifted away from being involved with the romantic relationships. Because, you know, it was Mi-kyung kind of accepting a part of herself as well, and that her privilege, it's something that she's uncomfortable with sometimes, but, you know, it's something that she has to just accept. Gift giving is her dad's love language, and it's also her own love language, and they have the money to be able to do that. And it's not something that she should be ashamed of. I think is kind of what I gauged from that.
And then, meanwhile, I really thought hard about this. I don't think there's a single time that Soo-young actually said sorry to Sang-soo. I was trying to think of a moment. I don't know if y'all can think of a moment. I don't think she ever apologizes to him.
No, I don't think she does.
And like, I was so frustrated by even in the last scene. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but like, this is the thing that I wanted to come back to about like his moment of hesitation at the crosswalk on that first time where they're going to meet at the hotel, and then she saw him hesitate and she left. Like, even by the end of the drama, they're still, it's like they're putting that moment of hesitation in opposition to like all the stuff that she's done.
The she's done, yeah.
And I'm like, why are we still talking about this like one small moment of hesitation after which he's been like completely gone for her and tried yes, he made mistakes, sure. But like he's tried so many he's like continuously chasing after her. She's continuously leaving him. And like you can see how this like anxiety of like never knowing if she's going to actually show up the next time that they like plan to meet, like it's kind of destroying him. And even at the end when he's like has no reason to trust that she's ever going to be there, and meanwhile she knows that he's always going to show up, and she's like, oh, but like that moment of hesitation is still seen as such a huge mistake, and it's like balanced against like her mistake of like pretending to sleep with his best friend. I cannot, I don't understand. Like, I like that really annoyed me. I was like, why are we still talking about this moment of hesitation that y'all like already covered in like episode 4 or whatever? And I thought we were done with that. I don't know. That really annoyed me.
What I found really interesting was Soo-young's character was that even though she is kind of positioned as this, this heroine who's in a weaker position but has a lot of strengths and you should be rooting for her, that moment when he's like, the woman I love is a bitch, because she turns around and hits him hard where it hurts. I was like, oh my God, you're right. They've actually crafted a bitch for the heroine, because she does this repeatedly, right? Like when
intentionally.
Intentionally hurting someone because she's anticipating being hurt. And she does it with like forethought, and she does it coldly. She's a bitch. And the fact that she doesn't apologize is also kind of, like it goes along with that character arc. I'm not saying I admire it. I just like that the writers
they knew what they were doing.
That is true. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm really impressed with these writers. This is apparently their first screenplay. And I'm going to give some amount of credit to the director, because usually when there are two writers and it's their very first screenplay, the director is usually a pretty big part of like the writing process. I'm kind of going to assume, and especially because of Brahms, kind of going to assume that we owe Jo Young-min a big, because I think they did a good job, guys. Like, I mean,
it's adapted from a novel, so and you can feel that with the voiceovers and stuff.
As if adaptations from novels haven't gone like terribly bad.
I mean, that's true. Yes, but
I liked it. I mean, do you know how horribly I was braced for the last few? I actually didn't want them to end up together. Partly because Soo-young was such a, like I said, opaque, complicated bitch that I was like, even if these two end up together, oh, it's going to be so miserable. Like, they are not ever going to be they're not going to be comfortable. Like, there's always going to be that some amount of manipulation involved. Like, they can't, I don't think they would have been perfect for each other. But a lot of people are interpreting it as an open ending. Are you guys? Did it feel like an open ending to you guys?
No, I personally don't think that they're ever going to get back together. What do you think, Fabi?
I think that they might, you know. I mean, we leave them climbing up this incredibly symbolic hill together. I feel like there's a chance. You know, it's tricky.
Let's just say I'm not rooting for them to get together at this point. I don't think it would be a healthy relationship.
Maybe in another 5 years. I think I mean, poor Sang-soo, but Soo-young still needs a lot of growing up.
Yeah,
to
for
do.
sure.
She needs to go to like 3 years of therapy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I see her point though, Frabby. Like, there's also that moment where she talks to her friend, her work friend, after she's given birth, and she's like, you know, the people who are meant to meet will meet. And then they coincidentally meet, like in the next scene. So,
Exactly,
so maybe
right.
that's the drama telling us something.
What I'm kind of left with is I'm kind of spoiling my last post on this show a little bit, but I'm kind of left with the idea that in this show the future is a very tangible thing. Like you can see it, like it's on the horizon, and it's kind of like washing away the past and the pain of it. Like you can see how Mi-kyung has moved on. She's not still in that place where she thinks that if Sang-soo doesn't love her, then she's worthless. And you can see how Jung-hyun, who didn't think he'd ever pass the police exam, is now a police officer. Like, enough time and these wounds will heal in some way or another. So I think that's kind of the conclusion that they're leaving you on, that, you know, once enough time has passed, maybe something will happen with these two. Or maybe it won't. But either way, it's going to be okay. And that's all I wanted from the drama in the end. I just wanted everyone to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they are kind of.
I just wanted closure, and I kind of got that. It was interesting to have these people sort of like put together and them trying to figure out if they can actually have friendships and relationships despite their differences. But at the end of the day, I feel like the story basically was like, unless you have yourself figured out, you really can't, you know, reach through these gaps and sort of be together in any capacity. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with this drama.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything. I had a great time. The last episode brought me to tears. Like,
Oh, yeah, we do.
the moment
Man,
I
me
think
too.
when they were wondering where they would have ended up if they'd gotten together 4 years ago, and Seung was like, maybe we would have got married, had children, maybe we would have divorced. And then Sang-soo says, maybe we wouldn't have divorced, maybe we would have,
I
you know,
like
worked
that.
through things. And it was
So emblematic of who they are.
honestly. But you know, the sort of
Yeah.
the rawness of that just was really beautiful and really upsetting.
It
And I
gave
loved
me,
it.
yeah, a little ache in my heart. Yeah, yeah. Can we give a little shout out to Moon Tae-woo, who plays So Kyung Pil? Just what a character, what a performance.
For
Applause.
the longest time, I couldn't figure out what his purpose was, aside from playing like a Narad.
He was just like a
what
weird
do you-
little, like-
a Loki equivalent.
Mischievous imp for most of the drama, and then
Right,
just in the
right,
last
yeah.
half, just really came
Like
into
a
his own.
puck. Yeah, exactly. Sort of this throwing a wrench into things character, but he ended up being so important
Yeah.
for so many character development moments. And then I love
True.
also, here's another way that I loved Mi-kyung's development. She actually, like, that conversation where she kind of confronts him about like who he is. And she's like, you should stop pretending like you don't care.
Yeah.
And you can just like see how he's just like poleaxed by that. and he changes after that. And it's like so sad because you can see that he still kind of has a thing for her.
Yeah.
Even all these years later, even at the end, you know, 4 years after everything's happened.
It's good they
Yeah,
didn't get back
I know.
together,
But
but
like
like
you
you
guys
can see
said-
his growth.
Yes, yes. Yes, I'm glad they didn't get back together. That would have been.
That would have been
That would
awful.
have been, yeah, I agreed.
This drama never takes the easy way. That's for sure.
That's true.
Any last thoughts?
I have so much more I want to say.
I'm really looking forward
Go,
to your
go.
blog post.
It's going to be long. It's going to be so long. Final thoughts. This is an incredibly human drama with incredibly human characters that really were just allowed to make mistakes. And you don't get that enough. And I just really, really fell for it in a way that I didn't expect to. And yeah, it's already my favorite drama of the year. And we're 2 months into it.
The thing that caught me in the initial episodes was not so much like the power difference, the class difference, and all of the misunderstandings and stuff. But the fact that Sang-soo is a very typical good guy hero, who makes bad decisions and then is like, again, because he has the pace of molasses. Even when he is stuck in a terrible relationship, he can't get himself out because man can't move fast enough. It's just anyway, sorry, got distracted. The thing that I really liked was those hints, like, which they didn't really go too much in depth, but in the first few episodes definitely influenced Soo-young's reaction to his hesitation, was because of the way he saw her, like as somebody who will agree to be his girlfriend if he just makes the move. Like, in a way, there was like an internalized misogyny, yes, but also like entitlement, where he's like, well, I just have to make the move, but should I? She's not of my class. Like, he kept thinking
He never
it was
thought
on
about the
him.
possibility that he might get rejected.
Which he did
And
a
so
lot.
when she does, and
Yeah.
then repeatedly, I know I should not take so much pleasure from it, but honestly, at no point did I ever feel bad for Sang-soo, because those initial episodes stayed with me. Like, the way he approached her and saw her, even the way the cameras showed him looking at her, it was a very deliberate choice to kind of, it's not that he was being disrespectful in the way he looked at her, but there was a certain amount of objectification. And yeah, I was fine, like she made him run the course, and I was okay with that.
There's this one time when he comes to her house in the evening and she's like, you look like you're having a hard time. And he's like, it's okay for me to have a hard time. And I was like, yeah, 100% agree. Like, you totally deserve it.
He grew so much as a
with-
character, but like still.
Yeah. Well, that was when he was still two-timing his wonderful girlfriend. So yes,
Oh.
Fair,
definitely
fair,
you need to have a hard time right now. Anyway, sorry to derail us. That moment came to me when you were saying that, Forma.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like there were some moments closer to the end where I felt like there was some stretching out of the story happening. But other than that, I don't know if enjoyed is the correct word for this, but it was a very intensely miserable, but also kind of warm and lovely experience to watch this melodrama. It wasn't like a mukjang, even though it had some of those kind of mukjang elements of like cheating and drama, but it was like so
public
gentle
humiliation.
with it. Yeah, but it was so gentle with it. Like, everything was so gentle. The dialogue
Yeah.
was gorgeous. There was so much detailed silent acting. There was so much yearning. There were so many moments where like everything that needed to be said was just told with visual storytelling.
and I
And
love
I
the
agree, like,
yearning.
huge kudos to the director. So yeah, highly recommend this if you just want to like feel miserable for 16 hours but not regret it.
Sums it up quite perfectly. I think it was really comforting as a drama because it embraces not only the characters' mistakes
Yeah.
but your own. It kind of feels like it's touching at something that you might have experienced, even if you've never been in anything anywhere as near as messy as this, right? Like, it's just like, here, experience this and feel it, and then you can go.
Yes. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us.
I was
And-
very glad to be
Well,
here.
for taking me on this journey, for Abby.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I hadn't realized that Forma was watching it, but I'm glad that we got to all be on this journey together.
I was tweeting after the first episode. I was tweeting about how madly in love I was, but I'm not going to mention what drama, and I'm not going to I'm just not going to jinx it by saying anything nice about it. So I was like that. I was making,
Meanwhile,
like,
there was me who was just
cryptic
like, I'm
tweets.
going to recap the entire
And
thing.
then Prabi's like, I think I know what drama this is.
Nice.
So yes, thank you guys for watching this drama with me and surviving all
Yeah.
16 episodes.
We made it.
Yay.
And I want to hear from listeners also, because I feel like there's been some negative reactions to the ending. I want to
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
hear people's thoughts on like why they didn't like it or what they thought of it.
Absolutely. Listeners, you will find a link in the description to this speak pipe, right? Link that we have. You can basically just click on it, leave us a voice note with your thoughts. And yeah, do it because we want to hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
We love the ones that we've gotten so far. So, Frabby, where can we find you on the internet? Where can people find you?
You can find me at crabbyfordramas.wordpress.com. I've written a lot about the show already, and I will write more. And you can also find me on Twitter at FrabsisCrabsis.
Definitely check out the reviews that Frabby writes. They're amazing. You can find us on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. And you can find me on Twitter at Anissa Khalifa _.
You can find me, Porma, at the Drama Notes. And you can find Dramas Over Flowers on Instagram at dramasoverflowers _ and you can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. We also have a newsletter. The link is right below. Sign up for like sort of monthly-ish issues. And
find our website at dramasoverflowers.net. We're also on Facebook. Just look us up. And Dramas Over Flowers is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. And that's it.
That's it. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.